Hi, I'm Andy Cloyd, Museum Director at the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. For our September Veteran, we're connecting you to Román Baca, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, Artistic Director, and co-founder of Exit12 Dance Company, whose mission is to share the experiences of war through dance and movement, working with both veterans and non-veterans. Also joining us today is Lisa Fitzgerald, Associate Director and co-founder of Exit12. Román and Lisa make a dynamic husband and wife couple, and we're honored to share their experiences with you today. Guys, thanks for being here. We're excited to learn about your service and what you're doing now after you served in the Marine Corps. So, Román, we'll start with you. We know you're a New Mexico native. You're a classically trained ballet dancer and choreographer. How did you decide to serve in the Marine Corps, and where did that desire come from?
First of all, thanks for having us. I think the National Veterans Museum is an icon to the human beings that serve this country, and it's an honor to share our story. I was a classical ballet dancer. I started dancing after high school because I had a really dear friend in high school who introduced me to the beauty of classical ballet. I went to college and took a couple of courses in classical ballet, got trained, and started doing some really impactful social themed work. One of the pieces that I did when I was younger was this piece about children in the Dresden concentration camps in Germany during World War II. And my thinking behind that was, wow, art can really have impact. Unfortunately, when I started dancing professionally, I was doing all the things you imagine a ballet dancer doing, taking daily classes, rehearsing all of the time, and doing productions that weren't as socially impactful. So Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty, these big performances that told stories, but not about people. And so I stepped away from a professional performing career because I wanted to have an impact on the world. I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to gain tools that would help me to help other people in tangible ways. And so I joined the United States Marine Corps.
You joined the Marine Corps after 2001, and then you were over and you served in the Iraq War. Can you describe some of your experience over there just for a little bit, and what that was like for you?
I served in the Iraq War in Fallujah, Iraq. My platoon was deployed there in 2005. We were a platoon of TOW missile gunners. So the TOW missile system is the wire-guided missile that's fired off of Humvees to destroy tanks. In Fallujah at the time, they didn't need a whole platoon of TOW gunners. So we were cross-trained as machine gunners. And one of our jobs was to patrol the local villages around Fallujah to look for insurgents, to develop a relationship with the locals and do good things in the villages, and to protect the populace. Fallujah was a very dangerous place in 2005, 2006. And so when we got there, every patrol was aggressive and violent like we were trained, because we wanted to, one, deter any attacks, and two, be tactically ready to engage the enemy if we fell upon them. The reality of those patrols was encountering people in the villages, mothers, fathers, children, all over the place, and trying to negotiate this aggressive attitude with the sentiment from the locals of hating us, not wanting us to be there, and then realizing that we could do real good in the community if we developed a relationship, if we tried to do good things, and tried to react if they were having issues as much as we could within the rules of engagement that we were given.
After Iraq, you came back to civilian life. So what was that transition like?
Fallujah was different. I mean, not only the things that I just described about, we experienced war in an urban setting. So coming back to New York and trying to negotiate all of these things that the military had laid upon me in way of training and trying to make those work in a civilian world. And there's a certain way of being, in the Marine Corps, it's okay to be aggressive. In the Marine Corps, it's okay to, you know, uh, attack people with words in way of encouraging them or in way of getting things done. And I didn't easily figure this out, but coming back and trying to make a go of it in civilian life was confusing. It was startling to try and use the tools I was trained to use with coworkers and realizing that I was making a lot of people angry. And also trying to like find out what I was going to do next. And I thought the answer to that question was I just followed an example of my grandfather who was in the Korean War and buy a house and get a good job and settle down with somebody I cared about. And so I started to tick those boxes in life. And I quickly learned that that wasn't the way to go.
Lisa, kind of same question when Román came back to New York after the war in Iraq, which was still going on. What was that experience like for you?
So when Román first came back home, there was this period of just excitement to be back together again. I mean, I was carrying on with my ballet training. I started dancing professionally with a company. So I was going through these big transitions of my own. Meanwhile, my personal life had this big transition as well. My boyfriend had just come back from Fallujah, and it was okay, like a lot has changed, but let's travel a little bit. Let's try to fall into a routine. And that was great when it started to, that reconnection period. But then after that, kind of what Román was describing of trying to figure out what was next, it became very apparent that there was a struggle there, that he wasn't just fitting back into civilian life. And I just remember him driving home from work one day, and he was stuck in traffic, and he put off to the side of the road because he had so much aggression and didn't know how to handle being stuck on the highway in traffic, something that is quite frustrating. But I can't imagine how frustrating that is when you compound that with the experience of just coming back from a war zone where if you're in a Humvee, everyone gets out of your way. So I remember him calling me and having to talk himself down from this really upsetting rage. And he took to cooking to kind of channel his energy. And I remember if I came home to this, big elaborate dinner, full, appetizer, main course, and dessert, all homemade, then I knew it was a rough day.
So let's talk about Exit 12. How did you guys form this company, and when did you kind of realize that you were making a difference?
I think what Lisa was describing was the catalyst that started this company in some way. It was this kind of volcano of emotions that continued to exhibit itself in certain scenarios that caused Lisa to sit me down one day and be like, this isn't working. Like, you're making people afraid of you. People are scared of you. You're angry, you're violent, you're depressed, you're anxious. If you could do anything in the world and you didn't have to worry about like the condo or your job, what would you do? And in my dance training, I dabbled in choreography, and I always wanted to start my own dance company. And so I kind of told her I'd start a dance company. And without skipping a beat, she said, let's do it. And so she asked some of her professional dancer friends that worked at the company that she was working at to come and try out some choreography. As every new venture does, we had, our time where we made really horrible things about things that didn't have any context. But when we finally investigated what we really wanted to talk about, when I really investigated what I wanted to talk about through my art, it was this experience I had just had in war. And all these experiences that I saw my fellow Marines, my fellow service members having. And then, going out and wanting to talk to people about their stories. And at the time, the only people that would talk to me were Vietnam veterans. And so drawing parallels between the Vietnam War and the aftermath of the human experience from the Vietnam War and the aftermath that we were seeing and that we were going to continue to see from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so then we started putting these experiences on stage because we really wanted people to know what it was like, know the impact of it, and know the impact on human beings that we're serving.
Lisa, kind of same question from your perspective about what's the experience been like forming this company, working with veterans and sharing their stories and letting them express themselves or explore these new experiences in a way they probably didn't think that they wanted to do or could do. But I think part of maybe what you guys do is also get people to say, find a new way to experience this.
So when we first started, like Román was saying, we just kind of started with him putting ideas of his into choreography and on the stage, and it lacked a true focus. It was more dance for dance's sake. And part of the reason I was so willing and eager to see what this dance company could become was because in my professional life, I was dancing Cinderella and Swan Lake and Sleeping Beauty, and I felt that need to use dance in a way that could be really powerful. And somehow we've managed to do that with Exit 12. It took a while to kind of hone in on what our focus was going to be. But once Román decided, I want to share my story, I want to share my story of trying to come back and find my way in the world, and my story of serving in the Marine Corps, and oh wait, there are all of these other stories. We all have stories to share, and if you collect all of these stories about the war experience and show them through dance, it's in a way that is nuanced enough that it reaches a different population. We have media all around us. We're hearing stories through the news, all these different ways, and it's so easy to kind of tune it out. Where if you go into a performance, if you go into even just a workshop, it's a very real experience. You're in the room, you have everyone else's body language, like just the whole energy of the room. And even if you don't say anything, that connection with other human beings, it's really powerful. And we try to focus on that when we do workshops or when we do performances. We often include a talk back session after the performances so we can talk about what the audience has just seen, talk about our collaborations with veterans and telling their stories, and also taking these two populations, professional dancers and military veterans, and putting them together and just building these new friendships, which is quite incredible, I think.
How do service members benefit from these workshops? What does this do for veterans in your guys' mind?
I think when we started, we structured the workshops so that we could focus in on some tangible things that veterans could build upon, get better at, or experience. And I think some of those are like teamwork. We have a choreographic task where teamwork is the focus. We have a choreographic task where repurposing movement or taking military movement and changing it into a more imaginative and artistic movement, thereby transforming the idea of violence into something else. And so these very aspirational things that we were designing for, that we were focusing upon. And what's so interesting is that, of course, after talking to the veteran participants, of course, you hear a little bit about, oh, it was nice working with other people, or yeah, it was nice doing the repurposing movement and seeing how I could like change a bayonet thrust into something more flowery. But what most of the participants were honing in on is the imagination and the creativity that it allowed to be able to express their stories and things that had impacted them or meant something to them through movement, and tell that to other people through movement. And then the confidence that that developed. Most of our veteran participants left the room and said, wow, I just did that. I wonder what else I can do. And they would go out and they would do something that they've always wanted to do, but maybe never had the right motivation at the right time. We had a veteran who immediately went and joined a peer-to-peer veteran group where he was helping veterans every day with things like support, resources, and maybe even just getting a ride to their appointment at the VA. And then we had one other veteran who was motivated to start her own veteran nonprofit in New York City working on veteran policy. And so you have these unintended kind of wins through these workshops just by investigating what happened and what's possible in the world.
You know, this month we're honoring the anniversary of September 11th and the 20th anniversary of that day. And it's also Suicide Prevention Awareness Month in September. So clearly you guys are doing important work on your end. But did either of you think 20 years ago when September 11th happened that this is where you would end up?
Yeah, I joined the Marine Corps right before September 11th. So I joined in October of 2000. I was already out of boot camp and in my unit when September 11th happened. And I just remember the energy behind every single Marine wanting to jump in a truck or on a plane and go do something and go respond and go either bring the fight to the peoples that did this or to go and help the people that were affected and help in the tragedy and lend an arm. Then, you know, with our unit getting slotted to deploy once and then deploying to Fallujah, I just remember feeling that energy again of this is our opportunity to avenge the tragedies that happened on 9/11. Then feeling the dismay of feeling like we didn't make an impact in Iraq when we were there, that we did as much as we could with the tools that we had in the time that we had. But almost all of my Marines came back and just felt like we could have done so much more. Fast forward to 2012, when I had the opportunity to go back to Iraq and lead a dance workshop. And sitting across the table and telling these Iraqi leaders that I had served in their country as a Marine with a gun, and having them all lean away from the table very hesitantly. And then telling them that I was back as an artist and I was here to teach their students how to tell their stories through movement and dance. And they all leaned back into the table, and one of them whispered, halu, which is the Kurdish word for beautiful. To thinking that imaginative and idealistic dream that I have, that we can do so much more in this world with art, that we can bring people together and resolve conflicts by investigating humanity than we can with weapons like we tried to do in Fallujah.
So now it's the fall of 2021. So what's next for Exit 12 for you guys?
As a dancer, you enjoy all of the places you perform. but typically they're, really nice theaters or big cultural centers. And with Exit 12, it's been incredible to go to West Point Military Academy. It's been incredible to dance on the USS Intrepid. And that's something that we've had the opportunity to do many times. And it's wonderful. And it's also wonderful conveying these stories of the military experience through dance and having some sort of impact. So as we look ahead, it's figuring out, how do we continue to do this work? How do we reach more veterans? How do we tell more stories? Because it's ultimately about that storytelling and opening up an avenue of connection between the veteran population and everyone else.
Román and Lisa, I want to thank you guys for speaking with me today. This was kind of a treat for me to get to meet you. We've been kind of following your work for a little while, and now we finally get to talk to you guys and let everyone else know what Exit 12 is all about. You can head to Exit12 Dance Company, danceco.org for more information. And you'll be able to see our Spotlight series here for September at nationalvmm.org. And until next time, again, Román and Lisa, thanks for all the work you do with Exit 12. And we'll see you soon here at the National Veterans Memorial Museum.
Thank you so much for having us.